Yo, 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 welcome back to 433 Presser, where the vibes are loud, the takes are real, and no one gets speared. Today, we have got Mauricio Pochettino responding back to US men's national team diva Christian Pulisic. Arsenal interested in Ollie Watkins. Mexico edges past Dominican Republic in close encounter. We're breaking it all down, squad reveals, transfer news, and the drama from the presser room. You don't want to miss this one. And remember to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on your post notification bell because we go live with the heat every week. Let's kick it off. This is 433 Presser, and let's get right into the discussion. Joined today by the man himself, CC Sports Lab, someone who I'm very familiar with, divides opinions across the board oftentimes. You don't really know where CC sits on certain occasions, Yudi. So he's a individual who you have to be wary of in terms of his opinions, right? You have to track him in terms of his opinions because he can switch very quickly. CC, how is everything with you?
Let me switch very quickly. No, you see the thing about transitioning is just the way in which you analyze certain situations with new information. Then you apply different mindset. But with everything though, for me, sometimes it's radical viewpoints. I think people don't like the blatant truth. Like, if you tell Arsenal fans that, yo, I don't know if them, I don't think so. I'm not in a position for win this. They don't accept it. And then at the end of the season, they're like next season. So you have some people who just don't like the blatant truth, presser. So you know it go already. But I'm in good spirits. I think with the draw that Jamaica got, like we couldn't ask for anything more than Destination World Cup because it's an all Caribbean group, as you know. Then you have the Central American group. So avoiding Central American teams is a plus, even given the mixed results that Jamaica would have had. I think people don't realize Jamaica has played Trinidad 4 times already in the World Cup qualifiers and they have never lost. Or should I say we have never lost. 3 wins, 1 draw. Bermuda, I think Jamaica played Bermuda twice and before in World Cup qualifying. 1 win, 1 draw. So when you look at the teams that are there, the Curaçaos and stuff, the Curaçaos we have beef with them because I think the final Caribbean Cup before it was abolished, they beat us 2-1. So we still have little revenge in our hearts. Say, yo, we need to beat them because people still have that on there. People, the last memory of us playing Curaçao people have is saying Curaçao beat us. Again, Master Pressure, so we need to
Yeah.
eradicate that. Even though I think we would have beaten them after that, but we need to eradicate that kind of memory. There. We know we can't get rid of it because it's history. But I mean, when you look at the teams that are there, I don't think Jamaica should, for want of a better word, struggle to make it to the World Cup.
No, definitely, definitely. Again, the group B, Jamaica, is grouped with Curacao, Trinidad and Tobago, and Bermuda. And it will be a tough battle against the country that I like to refer to them as the doubles country in terms of the food itself, right? But Yudi, how are you doing? How is everything with you? A Scouser. Well, you're not from Liverpool, but you're a Liverpool fan. You have
I'm
the
I'm not
biggest
a scouser. I'm Indo-Canadian.
yeah, Canadian Scouser at least. But how is everything with you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Looking forward to the Club World Cup. Looking forward to the CONCACAF games. I think it'll be an immense round. It'll be easy for Jamaica to pass through that. I think that
Yeah.
group's quite easy for you guys.
Personally speaking, after seeing the likes of PSG and these respective clubs across Europe not too long ago, I think I'll find more joy in watching the Gold Cup rather than the Club World Cup. I think the Club World Cup is a waste of time if I'm being honest. I think it's just a money grab in a sense. So I'm just gonna sit back, enjoy the Gold Cup competition, support Jamaica, and hopefully they can bring home that trophy that could, galvanize Jamaica in a sense, and it would be good in terms of the Jamaican fans celebrating that trophy. But let's get into the show for today. Now, let me just run over some transfer news. As we all know, the window is kind of closed in some sense. Wolves, Celta Vigo, Alejandro Garnacho. Alejandro Garnacho's priority is to stay in Premier League while he's set to leave Man United this summer. Despite Bayer Leverkusen interest and Ten Hag's appreciation, the deal looks complicated and Premier League is the player's first choice. Now, in terms of my opinion on this thing, Bayer Leverkusen is being actually quite, I think they're being disrespectful. You guys are signing, Florian Wirtz, that is Liverpool. You're giving them money. You also give them money for the right wing back.
Bunk.
And we have Alejandro Garnacho. It's not like we're asking for like 100 million euros or pounds or whatever the case is. So they don't want to spend the money. Now, in terms of Alejandro Garnacho staying in the Premier League, I'm not quite sure as to which club would pick him up. CC, in terms of Garnacho, is there any chance of him realistically staying in the Premier League? Like, which club do you think could sign Alejandro Garnacho?
I mean, I don't see the realistic. When I look at the clubs, I look at is that Manchester United? I don't know if you say leave. I look at Man City. I'm not sure Man City is in the market to sign a player of his in terms of his style. When I look at all of the big Chelsea, Liverpool, I don't see him going to any of those clubs. So to stay in the Premier League, it would have to be going to a club like a Nottingham Forest or um like a Crystal Palace or one of those teams because I don't see where he would fit at any of the bigger clubs. So for me though, if you want to like play Champions League football, I think he would try to get outside the league because I don't see any of the teams that are in the Champions League football signing him or picking him up. But I think a good move for him would be to go into the Spanish La Liga to one of those teams that are there. I think even Atletico Madrid could do well with a player of his caliber.
Yeah. Um, you know, I think there's a move in terms of the Premier League, but I think it's more like clubs such as Aston Villa, Newcastle United are one of those type of clubs who they've been challenging recently in terms of top four. I think they would have to break the bank. Would have to be a heavy investment for someone like Alejandro Garnacho. You the thoughts on Garnacho wanting to stay in the Prem?
Yeah, I think it's sad that the way he's fallen off with the Morim. I think he needs a manager who understands him personally, right? Because he's a fiery young kid. He needs to develop his personality still. You need a manager who's mature enough to understand, okay, that this kid comes from a different background, right? Now, in order to leverage the most out of him, I think Chelsea's behind him. Spanish clubs like CC mentioned, Atletico, Madrid, right? You have a plethora of clubs who are behind him, but I think the most suitable option for him would be someone like Napoli, who've given a 50 million bid for him in Jan. Chelsea, man, he won't get any game time over there, right? Too many players, too many wingers over there. You can easily your best suited club for you would be Atletico Madrid or, in my opinion, Napoli. I think he should get out of the Premier League.
Yeah, I definitely think so. So many clubs out there who I think they're of good quality, especially Napoli just recently winning the league title. I think it would be a good move for him, and I think there's still a vacant spot on that left hand side, right? Seeing that Kvaratskhelia would have left, so
Yeah,
so many clubs potentially could come in for Alejandro Garnacho again. Bayer Leverkusen interested. I think they're trying to pay cheap for a player like Alejandro Garnacho, seeing that he wants to leave United in a sense. It's clear as day that he wants to leave. But before we continue, people, please smash up the like button, subscribe, share the video as well, and let's get straight into it. In terms of more transfer news, the downfall of Italy, it has to be studied. Um, Gattuso has been appointed as new Italian national team head coach. Every time I've seen this guy in the headline as a manager, it has been when he has been sacked, Yuri. You know what I'm saying? And Italy, at this moment in time, they have to go through a rebuild from, the grassroots level straight up to the top in terms of, the boardroom decisions at the federation, the Italian federation, when you talk about Italian coaches, the only coaches I can think of who are actually good at this moment in time is Antonio Conte, and that's probably it.
Wait, really? So you basically just this done. This is done.
Ah, sorry, Ancelotti. I didn't remember Ancelotti. I didn't remember Ancelotti, but other than Ancelotti and Conte, those are the only two good Italian managers that we know at this moment in time. I'm not sure of any potential Italian
Yeah.
managers now. So I'm not sure what's going on with football in Italy. They've won the World Cup on 4 occasions. They won Euros a couple years ago, but it's just not. Nothing is going on good for
You say
Italy.
Inzaghi is going. Inzaghi went to the Champions League final
Oh,
still for
Inzaghi is
me.
Italian.
Yeah, man. Inzaghi,
Okay,
Simone Inzaghi, man. I used to play for. You see, is Italian. He's Italian. He's my
okay.
coach later. But as you rightfully stated, Italy has been on a downward spiral, and you're not even sure because even Italian players, how many great when we talk about the best players in the world right now, how many of them are Italians? Gone are the days when you would have the likes of Alessandro Del Piero and Fabio Cannavaro and the Andrea Pirlo and those guys like when I look at this generation, right, of Italian players, I think I'm not sure how many Italians that we can speak of. You would like the defenders. Like we know they always had supremely talented defenders. They always had gifted midfielders, right? And then you had the strikers as well. But for me right now, if we should name the best 40 players in the world, I'm not sure if an Italian name comes up.
Maybe
So
only
Not at this
Donnarumma.
current rate. Not at this time. I think back in the 90s they used to play Serie B, Serie C players, second division, third division players in the national team, and they've won major competitions. I think Italian, like you mentioned, the defense is astute. It's amazing, but at the same time, you need to be um, looking at Gattuso as a manager, bro. I don't think he has a commendable record. 43% winning rate outside the major leagues is not good enough. He's managed clubs. He's had frequent sackings. Right. He has an emotional connection with the Azzurri. He had a major contribution in the World Cup 2006. So I think that's the reason why they've deployed him. But at the same time, I think if people like even Mauricio Sarri were available, I think Sarri would have been a better option for Italy, to be honest. Even though Gattuso's style of attacking is dynamic, but at the same time, there are defensive lapses. 43% win rate outside the major leagues is not good enough.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think in terms of the squad that Italy have, no, I think they're good players. Udogi, Donnarumma, Bastoni, and some of those guys. I think they're good, right? But they're just not reaching to that next level in a sense. You know what I'm saying? You have the likes of Sancho Tonali and some of those guys. So they do have good players. I just think that they have to figure it out. But in terms of in the last 10 to 15 years, CC, I really and truly cannot identify a world class player that they've produced in the last maybe 10 years other than Donnarumma himself, who's a goalkeeper. In terms of outfield, you talk about midfielders, strikers, defenders. We're not seeing them.
Yeah.
The likes of Germany, Brazil, Argentina, France, they've all been producing world class players in the last decade plus. But for
And
Italy,
if you notice, even the guy who they, I think he didn't even get a fair shake. There's two guys and I think probably that is affecting Italy as well. Balotelli for me wasn't handled properly, and Moise Keane is the same. He's not being handled properly. You understand? So I don't know when you look at it, and those I think Balotelli was probably the last, what would I call it, world class player that they would have produced, even though he gave a lot of trouble. But I mean, I don't think they handled Mario Balotelli well and reaped what they could have from him in terms of a generational talent, because he was a generational talent. And I think when you look on some of this thing come like karma, because they haven't made it the last two World Cups, right? And they are on the verge of not making the third World Cup because Norway is leading that group with Odegaard and those guys. So I mean, they're not producing, as I said, much coaches. When I look at it, Argentina, look in South America, Argentine coaches coach I think 7 out of the 10 South American teams down there. So there's 10 South American teams, and I think an Argentine is at the helm of 7 of them. And then when you look at the Spaniards, them they keep on replenishing their arsenal because Cesc Fabregas is now in coaching. You look at every little young Spaniard, Arteta is in coaching, so they are replenishing their arsenal of coaches. But when you look at Italian football, I think, as I said, the coaches that are good, Antonio Conte, Inzaghi, and Antonio Conte, Inzaghi, and Dan Carlo Ancelotti. That's pretty much it. You really can't identify the other Italian greats in the game. So they're in a place where they're going to struggle. So I think, as I said, it's a rebuilding process. I don't know if they make it to this World Cup, but if they don't make it to this World Cup, it's going to be a lot of introspection needed for them to get back to where they were.
yeah. Huge shout out to Gasperini as well. When I think he's still at Atalanta. Is he? But if he's there,
Yeah.
remember a couple seasons ago, like he was wonderful with this Atalanta team. I think they scored like 100 plus goals or something like that. So he's also a good coach as well. And you have Mancini, you have Allegri as well. I think Allegri's problem was that he didn't evolve in terms of leaving Juventus in a sense. You know what I'm saying? I think he kind of just got too comfortable at Juventus. They sacked him and then they brought him back, and he's gone again. I think he's at AC Milan now. So they've just been bouncing around, to be honest. The last bit of news I'll get into: Luis Enrique, the Ballon d'Or should be Usman Dembele. He deserves it, no doubt at all. In terms of my opinion, CC and Yudi, my pick for the Ballon d'Or is none other than the man himself, Lamine Yamal. But we're not going to debate that today. For our next time, right? Now, moving on, let's get into the game that would have been played yesterday, the CONCACAF Gold Cup, the first game, Mexico versus Dominican Republic. Now, holders Mexico began their defense of the Gold Cup with a 3-2 win over the Dominican Republic on Saturday in Los Angeles amid tensions over U.S. President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. There have been days of protest in LA against immigration raids, with Trump deploying the National Guard. The Mexico team were forced to change hotels over security considerations, and on Friday, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum urged U.S. authorities not to conduct immigration enforcement targeting fans at Saturday's game at the SoFi in Stadium in Inglewood. On Saturday, protests continued elsewhere in LA and in towns and cities across the U.S. The city is also due to host the first of six FIFA Club World Cup matches to be played at Pasadena's Rose Bowl over the next fortnight, with PSG facing Atletico Madrid. Mexico's West Ham midfielder Edson Alvarez headed in the opening goal just before halftime in Los Angeles. Fulham striker Raul Jimenez converted his 40th international goal right after the break, although Peter Gonzalez swiftly pulled a goal back for the Dominican Republic, who are making their tournament debut. Defender Cesar Montes then deflected an Alvarez header past the Dominican goalkeeper to make it 3-1 before Edson Ascona scored with a deflected strike to leave Mexico holding on for a hard-fought win. A crowd of 54,309 were in attendance at the SoFi Stadium, which has a capacity of about 70,000 for soccer games, with mostly Mexican fans. The attendance for Mexico's past 3 games at SoFi has averaged 63,760. Mexico will play their next 2 group stage games in Arlington, Texas and Las Vegas, Nevada. The Gold Cup is the leading competition for national teams in North and Central America and the Caribbean, right? So I guess the immigration crackdown kind of didn't bring out the full-fledged Mexican fans. As they said, the last 3 games for Mexico at the SoFi Stadium averaged around 63,000, where last night it was around 50-something thousand. Now, CC, in terms of this Mexico team, right, played against a Dominican Republic team who Jamaica would have played last year, 1-0 win in our World Cup qualifying game at the National Stadium. Wasn't the best display from Jamaica in a sense. How impressed were you with Dominican Republic against this Mexican team?
I think Chime, you really impressed with Dominica Republic against the Mexicans, especially given given that Mexico, as we know, as I said, is a more superior team to the Dam Rep team, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of the coach and his tactical approach to the game, where he knew that there would be opportunities if you could get possession to exploit. So, in terms of the approach to the game, and the way in which Dominica sit back and bided their time, I think it was an excellent display from them. They could have possibly pulled out a draw in that game. But I mean, as we know, more often than not, the better team is going to win. More often than not, and the better team was actually Mexico, because you can know if a team is better than a next team based on the tactics. So Dominican Republic employing a low block and Mexico trying to use an high press to counter that. You realize that Dominican Republic is the lesser team and they're trying to use a strategy it's like in game theory, you're just trying to outmaneuver your opponent in terms of getting a victory. It didn't
Yeah.
work out this way, but I mean, Dominican Republic can give, like, where they have come in terms of football. I mean, I think they would have beaten us in the under 20s to 1-0 to go to the under 20 World Cup. And just the way in which football is being developed over there, you realize that there's a lot of education going on in Damrip, and in terms of the way they play the game and the tactical approach to the game. So they gave a good account of themselves. I just think Mexico was a little bit more superior on the night, and they edged out the victory.
Yeah, definitely. And, watching the game, listening to the commentators, while we are in Jamaica fighting about whether or not we should recruit players from overseas, you hear the commentators talking about the teams like Dominican Republic and other teams within our region. They're making efforts to recruit players from Spain that play in some of those leagues in Spain, whether the La Liga or the second division, third division, etc., etc. So some of their players are actually from Spain in a sense, right? Junior Firpo, he wouldn't have been available. I think there's something about him switching clubs, and there was a next player as well who he played for the Dominican Republic before, but he wasn't available for this Gold Cup, right? For whatever reason that was. But again, they did sit in a low block, try to hit Mexico on the counter attack on few occasions, and if they could have found that final pass in the final third, Yudi, I feel as if Dominican Republic would have caused a bit more problem. You know what I'm saying? But Yudi,
Yeah,
in terms of this Domrep team versus Mexico, Dominican Republic is a growing team within our region. Mexico, a
yeah,
dominant force within the region for so many years, defending champions of the Gold Cup as well and the Nations League. In terms of Mexico, right? You're familiar with the likes of Edson Alvarez, Gallardo, Reyes as well. I was impressed with Gallardo, to be honest. Raul Jimenez, again, as old as he is, he's still quality. And all praises be to God that he recovered from that injury that he would have sustained against, was it David Luiz when he played for Arsenal? And even before that, Raul Jimenez was just banging in goals for Wolves, left, right, and center. And I feel as if from the time he got injured for Wolves, that was the downfall of Wolves in some sense, Yudi, because they have yet to
yeah.
replace Raul Jimenez. You know what I'm saying? That connection that he had with the likes of Pedro Neto and those guys, absolutely exceptional. Mexico versus Dominican Republic, Yudi. Thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think the game was quite interesting, to be honest. I didn't expect Dominican Republic to be giving such stiff competition. I think this was their first major fixture, right? Playing against a big team, it takes a lot of guts, specifically going down 2 goals down, right? They came up with the second goal. And it was quite immense, to be honest, the way the players were working together. I think it was more of a mid to low block rather than a complete low block. I think if you look at the heat maps of the players entirely, I think they were really well distributed in a way. But then attacking impetus, you can't just expect a lot from the likes of Gonzalez. Peter Gonzalez on the right wing was immense. He scored the goal, the opener. They had a couple of good opportunities from Reyes on the left wing. But again, you need to be in cohesion when you're attacking, even if it's a counter attack. You need to be emulsifying that attack. I didn't see a lot of that happening from Dominican Republic, but at the same time, they had chances. They should have converted those. Raul Jimenez scored his 40th goal for Mexico, right? Chicharito is the highest goal scorer, 52. I think he's going to near that. He's going to break that record. But at the same time, if I look at this Mexican side, I draw comparisons to US and Canada, right? On paper, it's a really solid team. But at the same time, I still think they're doing better than what US and Canada can do at this point in time. And the merit says it all. I think they've done a fantabulous job. They have some really crucial players, specifically the defensive line too. I know they were susceptible to a couple of errors on transitions, but again, man, it was a game. The national team rarely comes together, and this is one competition where you need to just outclass the other. It was a stiff competition for sure, and it was difficult for Mexicans to actually go to the stadium. We know the ICE protests have been happening. A lot of scrutinization has been happening. In fact, the president of Mexico sent a statement out there addressing Donald Trump, requesting him not to scrutinize the fans on this day. But I think the protests were happening barely a few miles away from the stadium, right? So it was a very emotional situation for the Mexicans. And I think they won the game and they proved themselves right. So yeah, I think Mexico all the way.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about Mexico all the way. That seems as if you want them to win, right? But Mexico to drop out. But anyways, other than that, again, in terms of the performance by Dominican Republic, I think was a good performance from them. In the last couple of minutes, I think they had a few chances that they, really and truly should have scored from or made better of those opportunities. But Mexico, having players like Edson Alvarez, who is at West Ham, absolutely quality in that midfield in terms of the control that he brings and the attacking output that he brings as well to this Mexican team. I felt as if, it did cause problems for Dominican Republic. In the
It
first 10
did.
to 15 minutes of this game, Yudi, Dominican Republic, they were really compact with that back five, really, not giving Mexico enough spaces in behind. A few occasions when, Dominican Republic tried to play out, when Mexico did, kind of take the ball off them, they played those balls over the top very quickly, got in behind. And I have to say, despite the loss, I have to give a huge shout out to Valdez, the goalkeeper of Dominican Republic. In this game, he pulled out
Yeah.
some big saves across the 90 minutes for Dominican Republic.
Yeah. And even Rosario, he had a goal line clearance. I mean, that was immense to be honest. I mean, they put a good fight, man. You need to understand the stature, the stage was quite big for them. And I think they didn't get overwhelmed. And that's where even Mexico looked little slow in the first half. But the second half, I still felt like the competition grew even stiffer, right? But again, man, I think they're growing their players out. It's a young squad. I think by just nurturing more grassroots talent, I think they can still do a better job. But at the same time, the West Ham midfielder, I think he captained the team, right? I was expecting Jimenez to step up, but this guy is just growing physically day by day. I think he's working on his strength as well. For the size, for the stature that this guy has, he won all his aerial battles, right? And that speaks volumes. And he's able to provide good ground coverage as well in the middle of the pitch. But again, man, it's all about how the opposition pinned them down. I think Mexico had a plan. They had better quality on merit as well. So I think they did in a way outperform them. In fact, Mexico could have scored more goals, I felt. I think they had good chances as well. A couple of chances they missed out. It could have been a 5-3, 5-4 scoreline, in my opinion.
Yeah. People, once
But I
again,
want to
thank you for the
point this out
support.
though. You said 5-3, 5-4, but say it could have been 6-2. Put it like this:
Yeah,
that Mexico had four big chances in that game. That they missed three of those.
correct.
They didn't convert on three. Very, very, like, we know what big chances are, 1v1, like you want to keep those type of opportunities, right? And if
Yeah,
the Mexicans were to dispatch that, the score line, the play, that's why sometimes the play can be deceiving, and the score line can be deceiving given the level of play that is going on the field, because it could have easily been 6-3 based on
easily,
based
yeah,
on those chances that
for
Mexico,
sure.
if they had converted. So the scoreline now gives a flatter to deceive, but as Presser mentioned, he gives a big shout out to the goalkeeper because
Yeah,
the goalkeeper kept it respectable. So I know a lot of people saying that Dominican Republic could have drawn the game, but they could have lost ugly as well. And
they
yes, they
could
would
have.
have scored a couple of goals, but the goalkeeper kept them in that game and kept them on the verge of a possible draw.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
definitely.
I think even a major turnover happened for Mexico because of the midfield domination. You need to have a really good midfield in order to have more chances. I think that's where they really won the game. And you rightly mentioned they could have actually nullified them pretty early on in the game. But again, man, it's I have to give credits where they're due, right? Dominican Republic came up with a great performance. It's not easy, especially the goalkeeper as well. Not easy going against the Mexico. I mean, Mexico back in the days as well had the same amount of quality with Dos Santos and a couple of good players at the helm of things. But
Blanco and those guys.
yeah, it was a good team that back in the day too. In fact, I like that team better than what they have right now. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and they should have developed their squad better. I think Mexico is doing fine right now, but still, with the quality of players they have, expected a tad bit more in terms of longevity. But I think let's see what happens in the World Cup in the Concacaf tournament.
But I think remember too, UD they are going through a transition because remember they changed their coach. I think a couple it was a year or so back when they changed their coach in the middle of a
Correct.
campaign, and stuff. So I mean, as I said, Mexico they are doing well. I think they're ahead of possibly US and Canada, but and pay in the games. I think they're not managing some of the games as well as they could.
Yeah, yeah, they've had quite a few coaches come and go, in the past couple of years. But I think the team is still doing good. It's at the end of the day, the players are taking responsibility where it is due, and that's what matters. For Canada, at the same time, they have won a couple of friendlies in the last couple of fixtures, but I still felt the manager is doing the job. He's getting the job done. But you need the right caliber to be supporting that attack too. It's not just about winning the friendlies, it's about the major competitions too, right? Even the Copa America, we were having a good discussion yesterday about this. Like, they were barely brisking those games out. They won the games and they lost a couple. So I think it's just you'll have both sides to it. And I support the other side.
But that's a part of football. You win some, you lose some.
Yep.
I mean, some teams will never be good. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
it
And
is what
that's
it
why
is.
that's why I fear for Canada. You have good players like Schaffelberg. You have a couple of good young talents at the back as well, playing in Rennes, in Ligue, in Syria. But then, bro, these guys, I don't know, the chemistry is lacking at times, is what I'm trying to say. So, but I look at Mexico. On the other hand, I'm pretty impressed by them, to be honest. At least they look like a team who have been practicing a couple of good duels in training. Like they know what they're actually putting together, right? You see a team, you look at the chemistry, you're like, they're far better than what other nations are doing
But
in
you
Central
know,
and
I
South
think
America.
I'm wondering if they're going to change the coach again, because this guy is just basically the Mexican fixer, because if you notice that this is his third spell with the Mexican team, right? And and before on both spells, he just spent like a year.
Yeah,
He basically spent like a year or so or 2 years in the team on both spells. And they brought him in last year July to come and basically fix the Mexican team. So
correct.
I don't think he's the one possibly going to the World Cup, but I'm not sure if Mexico is going to really change with that. I think they want probably Marquez or one of those guys. But he's basically the fix of Mexico's football. Anytime they feel like they're in trouble, he's the guy that they go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Listen, I believe in football. Sometimes there's just some levels that you cannot punch above, in a sense, right? I mean, it can happen, but Mexico. I think they've always done well at the World Cup. Obviously, they would want to. In the last couple of World Cups, they haven't really. I don't think they made it to the quarterfinal in the
yeah.
last
They
couple of
didn't.
World Cups. So that is something that they would want to accomplish, right? As well as the US men's national team. I think the US men's national team, they haven't done it since what, early 2000s. I think it was like 2002, one of those World Cups, or the World Cup in Japan. It was, or something like that.
Yeah,
So yeah, so these two respective countries, they want to make it back to the quarterfinal, and then depending on the team that you play, you proceed from there, right? Again, people, smash up the like button, share the live as well to friends and family, and subscribe now.
yeah.
Something
But
I want to move
before we
into.
move on, like Mexico as a team, it all comes down to the major tournaments too: the CONCACAF Gold Cup, Nations Cup, and even the World Cup. Right? They were third in the World Cup, right? And I still felt like they really, I don't know, they feel a little overwhelmed there when they're facing oppositions like Poland. Like Poland, for starters, is not a great team, but still the stage gets to them. I think major competitions does take a toll on them. They were runners up in both the major competitions, the CONCACAF competitions. So I think it's just they need to like have that mentality going forward. I think they have leaders right now. In a way, you can say this is the silver generation for Mexico, right? We've seen the golden generation in the past, but they need to step up.
Yeah. By the way, not World Cup in Japan. I mixed it up with South Korea. Yeah.
It's South
Um.
Korea, Japan still. It's South Korea and Japan.
All right. South Korea and Japan. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2002.
But moving on, one thing I want to take a look at is this group, right? So Mexico, they're in a group with Costa Rica, Suriname, Dominican Republic. Personally, CC, I don't think Suriname and Dominican Republic will be making it out of this group. But moving on to a group, Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, Guadeloupe. We face off against Guatemala tomorrow, late kickoff. Uh CC, I think this Guatemala team can pose Jamaica problems, seeing that they will be fielding a stronger team.
As I said, I mean, the fact that we played them a couple days ago, I mean, that can give them an idea into what Jamaica is trying to employ, and probably strategy. Sometimes they say you learn from games that you win, but the opponent, the position learns because they have lost, right? So the Guatemalans would have had much more to prepare on, and plug certain gaps. So I don't know if the coach will go with the same type of strategy against them, given that he would have shown his hand in the game Monday. But I think it should be a good game, especially it. Like I think a lot of persons, even though we beat the Guatemalans, I don't know if they are still convinced. So I think the Jamaicans should go out and try to give another rousing performance against the Guatemalans, and actually show the other teams, even in the Gold Cup from now, say, oh, World Cup, when come World Cup qualifier, I don't know, plating. So I mean, Guatemala got far more support in the US than they would have had in Jamaica the other day. So it should be one of those tight encounters, but I just see Jamaica coming out on top. I don't even see with Ethan Pinnock coming back in. I don't see Guatemala getting a goal against Jamaica.
I think
nah,
that's a bit of a stretch.
yeah. I think they've done quite well, to be honest. I think for their caliber, for the team that they have, they were placed second in the World Cup qualifiers. Right, they scored 13 goals and conceded five. And in fact, I hear you. In the past couple of seasons, I mean, in the last 10 years, in fact, they've been losing quite a few games, but you don't see the likes of Costa Rica or Panama stepping up anymore. You have teams like Guatemala who are actually contesting quite heavily. Dominican Republic, they beat them quite fair and square, and Dominica and both British Virgin Islands too. I mean, if you talk about all these small countries, I think they've done quite well for that. And I think they might just give some stiff competition to Jamaica. I don't think it'll be an easy game for sure. It won't be
My
easy.
problem with Jamaica, Yudi, is if you look at our second round group, right? We played
Yeah,
Dominican Republic, Dominica, BVI, and Guatemala, right? And I think barring the Guatemala performance, which we won that game 3-0, the other performances was a bit mediocre in a sense, you know?
true.
We didn't really dominate these teams, especially against BVI. It was a 1-0 win away from home. So we find a way to win games, right? We do have better players than some of these teams, which it aids Jamaica in getting over the line.
Yeah,
However, how many times can you edge out games in a sense and get over the line? Sometimes your luck will kind of run out in a sense, right? So my main concern with this Jamaica team, despite us having a better team on paper compared to Guatemala, it comes down to us connecting the dots in terms of giving consistent performances, at least good performances in a sense. Now, the performance against Guatemala over the weekend, it was good.
yeah.
They did rest some of their major players, right? So with those 6 to 7 changes or those 6 to 7 players coming back into the team tomorrow, it's a different test for this Jamaica team compared to what they would have faced in the last game that they would have played Guatemala. And to be fair, Guatemala on Saturday over the weekend, really and truly, they didn't have anything playing for it. So that's why they kind of rested their players in a sense. What Jamaica was playing for was more like an improved performance compared to what they showcased against British Virgin Islands, right? In which they did improve on the performance. So against Guatemala, it's a very important game in terms of what Jamaica will do against this opponent with changes that will be made tomorrow. So again, we have to put down a next good performance come
And
tomorrow
and to
in
be honest,
last
you guys won it fair and square, and you were really good, by the way. You control the possession really well. But at the same time, if you look at it, their left flank is really lucrative for them. They work out really. Their attacks mostly come in from the left, but it all comes down to a couple of players from your end too, right? Like Damien Lowe and John Russell. I think these two players are going to be crucial in that setup too. I think you might play other players. I mean, I'm not really well aware of what the starting lineup is going to be, but at the same time, I think Jamaica should win that game, but you shouldn't be undermining them. I think they have a lot more cooking.
Yeah. I mean, AM Henry. Before I address your comment, where can we watch the match? I think Fox Sports 1 and 2 is showing the game. Um, this person, Javon Davis, said, "I don't see them scoring on Jamaica, and unless it's from a set piece." AM Henry said, "You are talking about Grimmy on his way out the door. There were 9 Jamaica Premier League players who were um in and out of the squad." I think he's saying not a good comparison from last year. Well, yeah, but even after that, when Hallgrimson would have left the job and then we brought in Steve McLaren, Jamaica did create a ton of chances against Cuba, right? We failed to score. It was a nil-nil game against Honduras at home. It was a poor performance. USA in the quarterfinal of the Nations League demolished Jamaica in the first leg against St. Vincent to qualify Jamaica for the Gold Cup. We struggled against them. It was a 1-1 draw. Jamaica was lucky enough to get a penalty in the last couple minutes of that game, right? So even against smaller oppositions and against BVI as well, we have struggled even after Heimir Hallgrimsson with Steve McLaren in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
we haven't had good performances consistently. So I get what AM Henry is saying in a sense that okay, you had 9 JPA players in the team back then when we played Dominican Republic, etc., etc. But even under this new manager, our coach Steve McLaren, we have struggled against smaller teams in a sense where we kind of fail to identify what the team is doing in some sense, right? There's also inconsistency in the squad that he selects. He goes against his words oftentimes. Sometimes he will tell you that he's looking for this type of ball playing midfielder, and then he selects someone completely different, right? So that's it in terms of how I view this Jamaica team. So again, we have to give a good performance against Guatemala in some sense. CC, anything you disagree with? See if I still
Yeah,
have
No,
you know,
some.
if
no,
you
no,
if you
no,
actually
no.
actually look at the yep, go on, go on.
Oh no, I was saying there's nothing that I disagree with. As I said before, we all saw the performances. I think Jamaica sometimes can be a yo-yo team, but I mean, sometimes in a list when you look at what is they're trying to achieve, people don't understand that it is very difficult is for you to qualify to the World Cup and also give them entertainment along with it, because this is that Jamaica hasn't qualified to the World Cup. What? Only once have we qualified. So when you look into that, Yuri, it's like, yes, they would want to play an entertaining style of football, but then there's also the pressure to deliver the results, which is more important at this point in time, the results. So I think sometimes Jamaica could have played better in terms of how they distribute the ball and all of those things against some of these teams. But I think the result is because they're result focused on a lot of these games. The Guatemala game, it was more less pressure because we never needed to win. We never needed to top the zone. We never needed, we just needed to not lose by 12 goals or more, which I don't think Jamaica was going to lose by 12 goals or more. To fail to get the pot one in the World Cup draw, right? So to be in pot one for the World Cup draw. So with all that being said, you could see that Jamaica was far more relaxed um
True.
playing against
But
Guatemala.
Yudi, where I disagree with CC is result shouldn't take away from putting down a good performance, right? No one is saying that Jamaica should, play the most entertaining football. But when you look at the game against BVI, when you look at the first game against St. Vincent and some of these smaller teams, it does concern you to some degree in terms of what is this team doing against smaller oppositions. If you cannot put down a good performance against smaller teams, what are you going to do against bigger teams when you face them? You know what I'm saying, Yudi?
I hear you, but you also need to pay a little heed to the fact that on merit, your team is much better than the other three teams. First, you see players like Isaac Hayden. I used to watch him play back in the day in the Premier League for Newcastle. Dude, he was considered pretty average in that squad, to be honest, right? Newcastle used to get beaten fair and square in those days. So it all depends on the caliber of the opposition that you're facing. I feel CC has a point to make. He's got a good point that you guys actually outclassed them in the last fixture. It was quite easy for you to win that one. So I think shouldn't
Yeah,
be a
but it's
tough
quite
tough battle.
easy.
But I
It's
hear
quite
you. I hear
easy.
you. You
It's
should
quite
never undermine
easy.
your opposition. Is what it is. It's all about on the in the moment. You need to be omnipresent. You need to be active in the moment. Yeah,
But it's quite easy when they've rested some of their starters in a sense, right? So okay, fair enough. We did beat them, but I'm saying even you look at the BVI game and the other respective games that we would have played as well, we still struggled
correct,
against even teams that would have been lesser than a Guatemala with
correct.
their
Yeah.
starters out.
Which is why I've held on to the argument that you should not undermine them. They might not be that easy because complacency is what takes away the beauty of football from you, right? So you shouldn't be going in with a complacent mindset, is what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough. But I think Jamaica will get the better of this Guatemala team come tomorrow. The only thing I have against this Gold Cup competition is the late kickoff. I mean, I'm still gonna watch the games, but
But
real
Javon still
frustrating.
has a point to make. Like Javon, he says USA and Mexico always found a way to beat Jamaica, right? But Jamaica, on paper, you guys have definitely done a lot more than what other teams have done, for sure. And I think for Jamaica to even lose games in the past couple of years, it shouldn't hold any premise in current times. Jamaica as a team, you might be undermined, but you can still beat Canada and US. You can, and you have done it in the past too. It's nothing surprising. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but you want to do it a bit more consistently. I mean, the Canada game
yeah,
that we beat you guys in, it was a one-off game. That was to me, that performance was more out of desperation. Like, let's throw everything at it right now in the moment. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But in terms of to go out there, 90 minutes of play, can Jamaica 7 times, 6 times out of 10 beat this Canadian team? Even right now, I don't think that's the case. I think we
To
do
be
beat you
honest,
guys, but not
you'd be
consistently.
surprised. Let's do that. Let's just wait for that. I think the next time you guys face it, I'm telling you, man, there are so many loopholes in this Canadian team. People are not able to see it. You have players who are performing right now in the
I
past
mean,
couple of
just
game
not
weeks.
too long ago, Yudi, you guys
Yeah.
went to the what quarterfinal or semifinal of the Copa America.
Yeah, but did you see the hurdles that we
Yeah,
faced?
but it
Like
doesn't
you
matter though.
talk
Like,
about
you guys made it that far.
you spoke about mediocrity. We had mediocre performances. Like I have no problem that I'm wanting Canada to win everything, right? Like as long as we have good performances, there is hope for the future. Like it is so difficult to perform at the World Cup level, right? What Canada did in against Belgium, against other oppositions in the last World Cup was immense stuff, right? That was a good stepping stone to go on. Now, you had a chance at the Copa America. I know you face a tough competition, But at the same time, was the level of performance good? It wasn't, which is why they brought in Jesse Marsh. Now, I feel the philosophy which is being imbibed is brilliant, but at the same time, are the players consistent enough? Look at Schaffelberg, look at Tejon. These are the consistent players right now. Up front, Kyle Aaron is done, man. He's done. You need someone who's replicating the same form that Jonathan David can show up for. Even in the Copa America, Jonathan David was having a tough time. It wasn't easy for him. So it's if you're facing stiff competition in the Central American region, what about the World Cup, bro? Like we need to think ahead, right? That's where I come from. I'm gonna look at the long term of things, and I feel this Canadian team is still not good enough.
Eddie, Jamaica's game tomorrow is 9 p.m. your time, 10 p.m. my time. Matter of fact, a game tonight, Yudi. I think Costa Rica is playing tonight. One of those teams. It's at 11 p.m., bro. That's very late. So yeah. But as I said, it's in the West Coast, so that's one of the reasons as to why. But I want to ask you about the specific individual, Mikel Antonio, right? He would have been involved in a car crash back in December, right? He hasn't played any football, right? Leading up
Right.
to now. Now he's involved in training with the Jamaica national team. It looks as if he will he will be on the bench for the Gold Cup, right? Um, Steve McLaren came out recently in a press conference, and there's this guy, Shamar Nicholson. You would have been familiar with Nicholson, right?
Yeah, I am.
He dropped Shamar Nicholson for the reason that he wasn't really playing for his club, so he's not fit. Something within those lines, right? And you're saying to yourself, Shamar Nicholson is training with a professional club, right? He's around
Right.
first team training. Yes, not getting any minutes. But Mikel Antonio would have been involved in a car crash in December. I think he, something happened to his femur or something like that, right? However they pronounce
Right.
it. And he had other, he sustained other injuries or whatever the case is, right? He's back into the team. Do you think it's fair for Steve McLaren to select someone like a Mikel Antonio when you even have other players out there that can represent Jamaica who would have been performing in other respective leagues? Thoughts on that?
I think Mikel Antonio is past his prime for sure. But for Jamaica, he can still step up. His caliber is up on top, right? But we need to see that he's coming of age as well. But at the same time, this guy Shamar has given a lot of competition to other clubs too. You can't really deny the form that he's had for Tuwana at the club level, right? I just feel in Jamaica there's so much politics regarding player selection. It's like the BCCI, the Board of Cricket Control back in India. Like there's so much corruption over there. Like I don't even want to talk about it, but I still feel sometimes player selection is done due to favoritism, right? And I totally disagree with that. I think the point that we're going to be touching bases on Pochettino and Pulisic surrounds the same breath. But yeah, I think other players should be getting more opportunities. To be honest, I think it'll take time for him to settle down. Keep him on the bench. That'll be fair. Other people who've been on the bench, who've been regular, they need chances.
I don't think he should even be on the bench. Antonio.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if he's fit, why not?
No, but how do you get fit from meeting an accident in December up to now, not playing any football? Like, why is he on the bench? Why is he traveling?
I
When you have
mean,
players out there who are performing, it doesn't make sense. So I'm
I'm
performing. I want to represent my country. I'm scoring 15 goals in my league, while a guy who met in a car accident can walk back into a national team. You think that's fair, Yudi, without playing any football
It's
minutes?
favoritism. It's all politics which is being favored, and we know that Jamaica is heavy on politics, to be honest, especially the football federation. So I mean, I don't really have any statement to make here,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, as you said, Pressa, like you gave and he gave a comment about Shamar not playing in a month, and and it was on Sportsmax that he said he's not bringing players in the squad to get fit. You have to come in the squad fit. So presuming that Shamar is not fit, like you're not, it's not the national team's job to get a player fit and ready. But even when I looked at the training video, Pressa and Yodi, with Mikel Antonio, it doesn't look like a player that is ready to play right now. Right? It didn't look like a player ready to play right now. And I respect Mikel Antonio. I love that he had came in and did what he did. But let's face it, he's played 21 games, scored 5 goals. Warner Brown played 7 games, scored 4 goals. So, like even look at the trade off, and then when you look at it like this, you had a guy named Mali Madasil, who I thought should have gotten the opportunity to be in the squad in the Gold Cup. Even if you're not going to start him, he has displayed the. He got his passport, he got everything, and he was on farm. 12 goals and 9 assists, especially for his assists, because when you look at his range of passing and his ability to play anywhere across the front three, for me, you wasted a position in carrying Mikel Antonio and not
Yeah.
carrying. But I feel as if it's gonna be like this. I think Mikel Antonio, if we qualify to the World Cup, is going to be at the World Cup, whether he's in form or not, because apparently he's one of those players that the coach favors. So if the coach favors a player, the moment you're healthy and you don't have any broken bones and you can walk or run, the coach is going to pick you.
That's the reason why McLaren has failed tremendously over the years.
But he's also contributed quite heavily, to be honest. I think the profile of
Yeah,
players that
quite heavily
Nicholson carries.
to West Ham. But when you have a guy
No,
like
I'm talking
Walker
about
who
West
has
Ham.
played
I'm
less
talking about
games.
Shamar. I'm talking about Shamar
Oh, oh,
Nicholson.
oh.
I think the profile that he carries, he's got a pretty tall. He's quite tall, right? And I think he has this good hold up ability too. I've seen him in a couple of transitions too. I think it's just that maybe he's not consistent enough, and the fact that he's played in so many different clubs, bro, like the preferential status is something which he is not uh, really accustomed to, right? You've been shifting from Belgium to Russia back to Tuana. Like, it's just going to take a toll on you, to be honest. And the selection committee, I mean, I don't know what are they up to be honest.
The
And
coach is a
if
liar. That's what he is. Simple. But
yeah,
moving on. Now, big thing in the US men's national team, right? Christian Pulisic. Mauricio Pochettino fires back at Pulisic, right? USMNT's Pochettino. Pulisic can't dictate which games he plays. Now, Pulisic did a recent interview, you did, right? In which he expressed that he wanted to play the two friendly games, but not the Gold Cup. And to me, that was just stupid. The friendlies are nothing. It's meaningless, right? The Gold Cup is something that is very important, which I think should be used as a platform for the US men's national team to build that chemistry, build that cohesion heading into 2026. 2023, they didn't win the Gold Cup, lost the Nations League, knocked out. Was it by Canada or one of those teams last year?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, by Canada.
Copa America dropped out at the group stage. So you
Yep.
have so many major sporting events in America in the last couple of years pertaining to football, which the US men's national team they have failed, right? Now the Gold Cup this year, it's a B team in a sense. The big guys, the big guns, they aren't available, and you have the World Cup come 2026. Now, this article from ESPN, United States men's national team coach Mauricio Pochettino said his players cannot dictate the plan as he explained why he rejected star winger Christian Pulisic offer to play in a pair of friendlies ahead of the CONCACAF Gold Cup, but not the tournament itself. Pochettino went on to state players need to listen and stick with our plan. He told reporters Saturday they cannot dictate the plan. The most important thing is that we explain why we decided not to include him in the two friendly games. And then, if you have some problems, no, that is not my problem to understand. When I signed my contract in the federation, I am the head coach. I am not a mannequin. Earlier this week, Pulisic told the CBS Sports podcast, Call It What You Want, that he needed a rest after playing about 120 matches over the past 2 years for AC Milan and the national team, but also wanted to play in two friendlies ahead of the Gold Cup. He said that he respected Pochettino's decision to exclude him, but didn't understand it. Now, CC, in terms of Pulisic, right? Captain America, the LeBron James of soccer, as the Americans would call him, right? Taking a leave of absence from the Gold Cup. He's talking about he doesn't understand Pochettino's decision to leave him out of the Gold Cup squad, right? Do you understand Pulisic logic to want to play in two friendly games but not the Gold Cup? Does it make
Uh,
any sense to you?
it doesn't make any sense, boy. Listen, it is the American elitist mentality. Because I'm gonna show you something. Who was those two friendlies against?
Switzerland and what's the next team? Turkey.
Switzerland and Turkey, right? Two
Yeah.
European teams, two very good teams in Europe. And if you notice, even the US team is to be blamed as well. They are. I think even Canada is falling into this thing, the only where they don't want to play the Nations League against teams like Jamaica and teams like um the little Caribbean teams. And they don't want to play the Gold Cup against the Caribbean nations and those other teams that they consider to be lesser than themselves. So you find that he doesn't want to play at the Gold Cup, right? I can understand the thing about getting rest and all of those things, But if you want to get rest, just say, yo, I'm not playing any at all. But to say that you want to play in the two friendlies and not the Gold Cup is telling me that you don't want to play the Gold Cup because it's against Caribbean and Central American oppositions, which you think you're better than, but you want to play against the Europeans, who you think are better than you. So when you go up against the Europeans who are better quality, then it is a much more, it's a better test for your skill set than to go up against some Caribbean opposition and Central American opposition. That's just my opinion, and that's what they have displayed over the years. Not playing in the first round of the Nations League, waiting until the quarterfinal round or the semi-final round, and the way in which it is structured so they can have a lot of friendlies against European nations and not necessarily play much games against CONCACAF teams. And I think this is another display of that mentality where this guy wants to play against European teams, but he doesn't want to play against CONCACAF teams. Why just say you don't want to play any at all this window because you just need a rest? To say you want to play the friendly presser is to say that you want to play the European teams, but you don't want to play the CONCACAF teams. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And before I get into the Pochettino went on further to state it's true that he wanted to come to be involved in the two friendly games, but for us, the Gold Cup is an important tournament. Pochettino responded on the eve of the US men's national team's Gold Cup opener against Trinidad and Tobago at San Jose's PayPal Park. Yes, it was my decision. It was our decision not to include Pulisic in the two friendly games, and that's it. It was in our original plan to bring him to play in not only the two games, but the Gold Cup as well. So he wanted to bring him for the two friendly games, UD, but as well as the Gold Cup competition as well. US men's national team went on to lose to Turkey 2-1 and then to Switzerland 4-0. Now, I think UD, it's quite disrespectful in terms of Pulisic wanting to play in those two meaningless friendly games, but then wanting to play in the but not wanting to play in the Gold Cup in a sense. And as CC said, kind of summed it up perfectly. He doesn't respect the lesser teams in terms of maybe the Jamaicas of the world, Bermuda, those respective countries as well, right? And you
Yep.
know, and that's why for me, when it comes on to football, in terms of I even have more respect for a country like India, who isn't good in football, with all due respect. I have more respect for India in terms of football compared to Americans. When Americans talk about
Yep.
football or play football, it just rubs me the wrong way for some reason. I don't have that same respect for them compared to what I have for other countries. I even have more respect for other smaller Caribbean countries surrounding football, even though they don't have as much accomplishments as the US national team. I think the players are entitled. I remember the whole feud with the not Gio Reyna. Was it Gio Reyna CC and his father?
I think so,
I think it was Gio Reyna just trying to dictate things, and I'm like, bro, who are you guys? Yes, your father played for the national team, but who are you? You know what I'm saying? But you, in terms of Pochettino and him taking the strong stance in terms of players not dictating when they want to play, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there are two sides to this argument, right? And I'm not supporting anyone. I'm just going to present the points, my
Obello, big
opinions,
up
and what
yourself.
I feel, right? Starting with Pulisic. First of all, Pulisic is a player who's, again, regarded in the highest of standards by Americans, right? One of the best players that they have in that squad. Pochettino made a statement in November 2024 saying that Pulisic can be as good as Lionel Messi, which was, again, baffling. But at the same time, I mean, I
No, he
know
didn't.
how,
He didn't
how
say that.
he did say that.
What did he
He
say?
said
Repeat that.
he said he can actually reach up to his talent. I think he's as
When?
good a
When?
player as
Last year
Lionel
November.
Messi is.
Last year
Anyhow,
November.
anyhow, my point is
Okay.
he's regarded pretty high on a really high level by Pochettino. He gave him that respect, but at the same time, Pulisic, he knows he's injury prone. He missed 11 games this season, by the way, for AC Milan. He's always had muscle fatigue issues, ankle injuries, muscle problems, muscle strains, you name it, right? He is an injury prone player. We all know that by now. But at the same time, he should have not. This is what I feel, right? Football is not just a job. It's available to each and every individual in this world. Even if you don't have money, you can watch football. You know what is happening in the world. At the same time, Pulisic should be respecting Pochettino. He had a conversation with him on a phone call, right? And he says that the coach understood my problems. He acknowledged it and he hung up, right? And that's fine. But at the same time, when you go on a podcast by CBC and when you're making it public that, you know what, it is up to me. I don't get to play the friendlies. I don't want to. I want to play the friendlies. I don't want to play the Gold Cup. It has 8 fixtures in totality. I think I'll be burnt out. Dude, do not disclose it to anyone. You got to be a little secretive about these things. Why do clubs like Liverpool not get into controversial opinions? Because those players are disciplined enough. USA as a national team. In fact, I'm happy that Landon Donovan and Tim Howard they came forward. They criticized him. They told him like, dude, you got to check that attitude of yours. Yeah, you got to check that. And he's in the wrong. He's in the wrong completely. I agree with that. But at the same time, Pochettino needs to realize that Timothy Weah, Pulisic, these players, they don't really have enough talent coming in from the grassroots. These are the players who are actually the most flary in that team, right? And can perform for US at that level. Pochettino should have addressed the situation in the way he did. In fact, he did right by him by putting him on the bench, by not even selecting him for that squad in the friendlies. And I don't think he's going to play in the Gold Cup either. But I understand where Pulisic is coming in from. He's more concerned about his injuries.
Yeah, but the thing
Pochettino,
is, this is
Pochettino has to be
Yodi,
respected as a
let me
manager.
say this, CC. This
Yeah.
is how stupid Pulisic is, right? If you want to rest, if your concern is injuries, etc., and fatigue, why play against Switzerland or Turkey? You can be injured in those games as well. What did God talk to Pulisic and he's like, well, Pulisic, if you're playing these two friendly games, you're not going to be injured. But if you're playing the Gold Cup, you're going to be injured.
Pressa,
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm gonna tell you what I go on already, Pressa. The man who want to play a European competition. The man no want to play the man no want to play no CONCACAF competition. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised USA no petition for going to UEFA at this point in time. Because no, but you yeah, but that's so all right. What could have possessed you to say you want to play against Turkey and Switzerland? You said you want number one, you want to rest. That's the number one thing. You have played 120 games over the past 2 years. You need a break. However, you would like to play against Switzerland and Turkey, but you would not want to play the Gold Cup. So just follow that you would. What could have possessed you to
Yeah.
say those things?
You're right, actually. I agree with you. I mean, playing 8 games will not ruin your fitness. I agree with that. I think it's also because the level of competitiveness offered to him at that European level is definitely higher. And it is a token of disrespect that he's leaving out there for the Central American teams. And I agree. Even though USA have been inconsistent at this level too. At the same time, I think it does really come down to personal bias because even his father he backed him up against the ex-US MNT pro players, and he told them it's all about muscle fatigue and nothing else. It's all fitness concerns. And I think, to be honest, players like Pulisic, again, bro, you can't really expect someone to be patriotic just because they belong to a certain country, right? It all comes down to whether you want to play for the badge. Like Presser mentioned, Indians, they have nothing to complain about. Why? Because they are not even playing at that level right now. Like our team is so shit. We are 127th in the world right now. We lose to countries like Indonesia and whatnot, right? You won't expect our players. Our players are humble and grounded enough to know that okay, Indian culture is a culture which is definitely much better than Western. I would say that in that regard, when it comes to discipline, Japanese culture Southeast Asian culture and Jamaican, even Trinidad and Tobago. I have so many friends from there, dude. These countries know what humility, what good nature is supposed to be like. Like you mentioned,
But you know, though.
elitist nature. It all comes from your values. Elitist nature of Americans.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
capitalism, man. Capitalism, you
exactly.
would. Because if
These,
even in the country that you are, yes, Canada, you
yeah,
notice there's a difference between Asian countries and the Canadian and stuff. But when it comes down to like, countries that are capitalistic in nature, you
yes,
notice there's a braggadociousness about some individual and their personalities within the country, and you see it comes out because if you say Western culture, it's basically American culture. The Westernism, and I said before, to come out and like as I said, you can be secretive about these things. You could say to your friends, "Oh, I don't really want to play no Gold Cup, because the quality of the Gold Cup hasn't improved me over the years." But to come out and say, "Oh, I want to play the friendlies," which are meaningless basically, but you don't want to play at your confederation. Put it like this: if Vinny Jr. said he doesn't want to play Copa America, but he wanted to
yeah.
play some friendlies,
I
if
think he'd
if
be banned for life. He'd be banned for life.
Exactly. And if you're in Europe now and you say like Jude Bellingham is like, I'm not playing no Euros, right?
Yeah.
But I'll play. So it's that is magnitude. I don't think he's thinking about it. If Salah is saying, I'm not playing Afghan, you get what I say? Like
Yeah.
those it's that type
To
of
be honest,
sentiment.
if Salah says that, I think they'll be okay with that. In fact, this happened, right? I think last year when he didn't want to play in AFCON. See, that's again, it depends on your board as well. The president, how does he react to it? But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like Pulisic,
But you
man,
see,
you're
the thing with
looked up as a
Pulisic,
leader, bro. Like you need to live up to that leadership. You can't just make statements like this in public.
the thing with Pulisic and these American players, right? I think the Americans, the media, I think they've built them up into something that they're not before, in a sense. Whereas like players from like Central America, South America, Europe, in a sense, you have to work for your status in football. You know what I'm saying, Yudi? You have to work for that
Yeah,
tag. Where Pulisic coming up, oh, he's the LeBron James of soccer, Captain America, all these different type of ridiculous things. And I'm saying in a year of the Gold Cup, a year out or less than a year out from the World Cup tournament that will be played in USA, Mexico, and Canada, now is the time where all the big guns for USA should be playing in this Gold Cup tournament against Mexico, against Canada, the other two nations that will be hosting the tournament as well. Making a impact, showcasing something so that Mexico can be like, wow, these Americans are really impressive. Canada, Jesse Moore should be saying, oh shit, the USA is coming with something special next year. They might make it to the quarterfinal. They might make it to the semifinal, right? But I don't think they'll be winning the Gold Cup this year. And in terms of next year for the World Cup as well, I think America will fail miserably. I think by the round of
correct.
16, they'll drop out. And I'm
Yep.
hoping and praying for that
I
because it's
hope
a
your
big
wishes come
statement for
true.
me. It will be some form of a big statement in terms of a reality check. But in terms of how USA goes about, in terms of how they operate football, I think it's a disrespect to the sport in some sense, especially the whole, academy system, pay to play. It's just absolutely ridiculous, man. London
Yeah,
Donovan, a lot of people criticize him because he took a break from the national team, but he came out again and he said, okay, yes, I took a break from the national team. However, I learned my lesson. So there's no one in a better position to speak on this situation but me, right? In which I think he did it in a good way, and I commend him and respect him for that, right? So Pulisic for me, as I called him earlier in the show, earlier on in the show, he's a diva to me, right? And as I said before, when you look at the likes of Weston McKennie playing for Juventus, it tells me how far Juventus are falling, right? When a player like Weston McKennie is playing for Juventus, right? Gio Reyna, for some reason, cannot break into a team. His father tried to hold national team at hostage at one point in time, right? You have other respective players as well. I just don't give USA the same respect with
yeah.
football compared to other countries. If anything, I think they should pack up and stop playing football. I've said it's one thing to beat Jamaica and Canada. It's small teams, man, but I
Yeah.
think they should just stick to basketball or baseball or whatever the case is, one of those sports. But I don't think
Yeah,
they'll
I think
accomplish much.
I think they'll be okay. US is a diverse country, right? US is a country of immigrants too, right? I think they'll be okay, to be honest. And Pochettino is not a manager who can be reckoned with. I think he's quite formidable as a personality. I think he's carried some of the major teams in the world to really
I
good
think what these
levels.
players fail to realize
Yeah,
is that he has managed some of the biggest players in the world, and he would have learned his lesson from PSG, right? And
yeah,
with the likes of Greg Berhalter and some of those previous managers of the team, they didn't really have control of the dressing room in some sense, right? Um, and with Pochettino, I think Pochettino is coming in with an iron fist, and he's laying the law, he's setting it down, and if it's not his way, it's no other way. And I think the US players, I think they have to fall in line in that sense. And in my opinion, Yudi, with Pochettino's time at PSG, in terms of Neymar, Mbappe, and those guys, I think Pochettino is willing enough to drop anyone he thinks isn't with his plan, even Pulisic, even Weston McKennie, even Gio Reyna, even Haji Wright. I think he's willing enough to do such thing, Yudi, right?
yes,
I think he will do it. So, yeah. The last thing I want to talk about is Arsenal. They've made an interesting striker, Ollie Watkins. What the heck? Arsenal back in for Ollie Watkins as they freeze Victor Goyekare's transfer despite Sporting Star snubbed Man United. Arsenal have put their pursuit of Victor Gyökeres on hold and reignited their interest in Ollie Watkins. It has been claimed the Gunners held talks with Sporting Lisbon hitman Gyökeres' agent over a summer move to the Emirates earlier this week. The article went on to state, but according to reports, the North Londoners have temporarily shelved their interest in the Super Swede to re-examine a move to Aston Villa's Watkins. Now, CC, Ollie Watkins came up from the Championship, been in the Premier League for maybe 3 or 4 seasons. He has consistently hit double-digit numbers in terms of goals. Do you think Ollie Watkins, being a Premier League proven striker, I think he's going to be 29 soon, if not 29 now, other than the likes of Benjamin Sesko, Victor Osimhen, and Gyökeres as well, do you think Ollie Watkins could be the striker to lead the Gunners across the line in terms of getting that Premier League title?
Uh, when I look at it, like I would say he could aid in terms of getting them closer in terms of the title.
He
How
had what,
much close?
16 goals in the Premier last season.
I was saying 16 goals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that in terms of proven Premier League striker, he's been scoring in double digits. I mean, sometimes you look at certain players and you say, oh, if they probably take a step up into a better team where they can get a lot of opportunities, what would it be like? I'm not really sold on English strikers a lot because I've seen like Hurricane. I mean, Hurricane recently won a title with Bayern. I mean, he scored pretty much a lot of goals. He had Michael Owen at Liverpool. He had Alan Shearer. I think he had one Premier League. He even had Wayne Rooney, but Wayne Rooney, we know Wayne Rooney can play in different areas of the pitch. I'm not sure if you have a Victor Gyökeres on the market and you have a Ollie Watkins. I just think Arsenal is taking the cheap route out. Like they're just trying to take the cheaper way out. And for me, I don't know if this is the way I would want to go. But I think Gyökeres gets them the title if they have their injury concerns to take away. Liverpool is breaking the bank right now. Are has broken the bank to get Florian Wirtz, right?
Yeah, I
But
don't think it'll really happen anymore. I mean, it's just for a few players. Liverpool is not going to get anyone else. Yeah,
but I'm just saying, in terms of them just winning the title and having not signed anybody, they broke the bank
yeah,
to actually go again next year. And if you're looking to go against next year, what Liverpool is putting out there on the table,
true.
I'm not sure Ollie Watkins is that guy. He's been in the Premier League for a number of seasons, but we've seen the likes of Wilfred Zaha do well at Crystal Palace, and when he comes up at Manchester United, he had to go back to Crystal Palace. So I don't think Ollie Watkins is the deal that you get unless you can't get Gyökeres. But if you can't get Gyökeres, then I think Ollie Watkins is a good backup to get. If it was up to me, I would get both of them.
How
But
do we pronounce his name? Gyökeres or Gyökeres? How you say it, CC?
I think I said Gyökeres.
Yeah, I see people
Gyökeres.
pronounce it
Yeah,
differently.
Gyökeres.
You, the thoughts on Ollie Watkins? 16 goals last season, 23-24, 19 goals, 22-23, 15, 21-22, 11, 20-20, 21, 14.
Yeah.
23-24, 19 goals and 13 assists, and just last season 18 assists as well. So he's not only a goal scorer, he does create chances for his teammates. Thoughts on Ollie Watkins and Arsenal potentially signing him?
I think I'll talk in terms of this. I think he's a brilliant footballer with a very high IQ. Like you mentioned, he can play a false nine role. He can be a target man. He can do anything. He has the entire, like, more tools than even the likes of Erling Haaland, to be honest. I'll say that. But the thing with Ollie Watkins is he's physically regressing, and I've seen it myself. Um, if you put him in a team like Arsenal, you would expect someone like Gabriel Jesus like mobility. His mobility is questionable. That's why you have players like Asensio, Morgan Rogers, and you had Leon Bailey at one point, and even a couple of other players on the flanks who are really mobile, really fast. For Oli Watkins to navigate that 18-yard box becomes easier, right? You need a player who's going to be quick. For Arsenal, they need a player who's going to be quick, right? I don't think Oli Watkins should be a good long-term suitor. He might score goals, But I'm telling you, if he goes to Arsenal, I see him going down to 8 or 10 goals a season, unfortunately, because the system's going to be different. For Ollie Watkins, he became accustomed to Aston Villa for a reason, right? He became comfortable within the club. It took him time to become comfortable. Where did Ollie Watkins, by the way, come from? Which was his previous club?
Was it not Brentford?
Yeah, he came from Brentford. He came
Yeah.
from
Oh shit,
Thomas
he's in Milan.
Frank's
My bad.
model, his philosophy, right? And even under Thomas Frank, he grew him really well. David Raya, he came from Brentford under Thomas Frank. You need to understand this is not going to work out. And this equation, like Arsenal are going to go in for a haphazard situation. Do not sign Oli Watkins. I'm already telling them, like I've been telling the fans, do not vouch for this. Gaikoresh or Benjamin Sesko again. Sesko is going to be raw, but for a long-term prospect, if Arteta is the manager that they say he is, he might just grow him out well.
I mean, Reggae Boys reactor saying Watkins will be better with Arsenal. Arsenal has better providers than Villa. I mean, it doesn't always work like that. You know, we've seen players make the step
I
up
hear
to a
you.
better
He's
team,
right.
and it
He's
doesn't
right.
work like that.
They have better providers than Villa, but at the same time, their system, their manager sucks. He is slow. He makes them play slow football. He likes distributing this balls horizontally, not vertically. They are not convincers. They are possession makers. That's it. They are not convincing enough with the ball. They need to be more. There needs to be more conviction in their display, right? In fact, with Xhaka, they've regressed. With Xhaka, they used to look better on the ball. Xhaka was more convincing than any other midfielder in that flank. In fact, Martinelli was so comforted by Xhaka's presence near the box, right? He used to get most of his assists from his end, right? So you need to understand there are certain players who are going to suit the system. I don't think Oli Watkins is a good fit for Arsenal at all.
Yeah.
Nada.
Personally, you talk about Xhaka. I don't know how people rate Xhaka, honestly, bro. Like, it baffles me.
But he actually became really good for Arsenal in the last two, three
Bro,
years. He became
after
really
being,
good.
in my opinion, as a football, when you're a football player, after being shit for so many years, I don't think there's any point that you can become good. That's how I see it. So after all his sins, throwing down the captain's armband, etc., telling the fans to fuck off, whatever the case is, sorry for my language. You just, to me, yeah, he might have a decent season. He went on to win the league with Leverkusen, fair enough. But his time at Arsenal, bro, I think he was there too long, honestly. So yes, he
And
probably did have
honestly,
a good season, but
bro, I can see it now. The reason why I don't vouch for Arteta, he is losing his shit, to be honest. He is. He's made the system so slow, it looks redundant. They look limited. No matter what the star value of players is, bro, in order to, there's only one cheat code they have, Bukayo Saka. No one else. Nothing. Right? Even Odegaard this season, he started fluctuating. Otherwise, it used to be one-on-one with Odegaard and Saka. They'd release the other player, goal. Odegaard, he became limited because of his injuries, because of fitness concerns, and now you have a Bukayo Saka who came back from injury, wasn't able to score. Out of nowhere, you have a Martinelli stepping up, scored 2, 3 goals in the ending games of the season. So yeah, it
yeah,
is
you
what
talk
it
about
is.
Odegaard. I think he'll be a key piece. I think it's a make or break season for him next season. In
Exactly.
terms of being the captain, being that creative outlet. So if he doesn't step up to the plate in terms of scoring goals and creating chances, I'm not saying that's it for him in an Arsenal jersey, but I think by next season in the summer they will be starting to look at creative players in a sense. You know what I'm saying? And then in some regards that will bring in some competition for Odegaard. But people, that's where we're gonna leave it for today. Um, big shout out for CC or CC to come on the platform. CC, you're muted.
Yeah. As you already said, I think Arsenal. I don't know. For me, they chose the opposite way, as the man said. Like they're trying to go the cheap route out. Arsenal should have gotten a striker from last
Yeah.
season. They should have gotten this striker last season. Spending money. People keep on saying there is not the need for a number 9 again because they say like, oh, the PSG teams and some of these teams win. In the Premier League, unless you're Liverpool, who Liverpool doesn't employ a natural number 9, but they have a goal scorer in Salah, and they had a goal scorer in Sadio Mane previously. Unless you're that type of team, but you have to have a player who is scoring 20 plus goals. So we see Ebuemo and Wissa. Like I thought that for me, if you're going to get a striker in the Premier League, Yudi and Pressa, I think you go with Wissa. I just think if you're going to get a Premier League striker, you go with Wissa over Ollie Watkins. Wissa from Brentford over Ollie Watkins right now. If you're
Yeah.
going to go for a striker, because I've seen what Wissa can do in a Brentford system, which I think can translate more into an Arsenal system than as you said, the physical aspect, the physical game of Ollie Watkins is not there, and I think Arsenal plays at a rather pedestrian pace at times, and I don't know if Ollie Watkins would be able to thrive in that situation unless they got a couple of wingers to assist him. But as per usual, they're trying to go the cheaper way out because I don't think Ollie Watkins would cost them £50 million, and then
Yeah.
in terms of the salary too, so the commitment they're not trying to be give a huge commitment in terms of wages. And it cost them the last time because a team that was 2 points away basically finished at 7 points away from the Premier League title in 2 seasons. One season it was 2 points, the other season it was 5 points. Because I think it was 84, 89. One season it was 89, 91. So that alone shows you in the last 30 years, there's only been two there's only been one time a team has won the title without a striker scoring without a player scoring 20 plus goals. And I think that was like um Manchester City. But guess what Pep Guardiola went and did? He got Erling Haaland because he knew it wasn't sustainable for him to try and win this Premier League title presser without that type of striker. He knew it wasn't sustainable. Had Pep Guardiola not got Erling Haaland, I don't think he would have won those titles. So Arsenal people, I don't know if Gyökeres Koresh is saying, I don't want to go to Manchester United, I want to go to Arsenal, and he scored 20 plus goals in the championship, so he has played in the championship in England already. Why not look at the striker and say, yo, here what? I'm going for this guy. I'm going to break the bank to get a guy who can come in and give us 25, 30 goals.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. BBK Sports, Arsenal fan, big up yourself. BBK, we need to link up, do a show together. So, until next time, people, stay safe, like, share, and subscribe. Also, subscribe to CC's channel, CC Sports Lab. So that's CC SPORT ZRS
Z.
ZLAB Lab. So, yes, people. Big up on yourself. Jamaica will be playing against Guatemala tomorrow. So look out for that game, people, and hopefully Jamaica can get the important win in that game.